souls seeking meaning and serenity. I am Naomi, and from this little corner of calm, where the only sound breaking the silence is the soft murmur of the wind as it caresses the maple leaves in my garden, I warmly and sincerely welcome you to Minimalist Charm. Today I want us to explore together a Japanese concept that resonates deeply with the search for a full and purposeful life, Ikigai. But not the grandiose Ikigai that is. Often presented to us as a distant and almost unattainable goal, but what I call the silent Ikigai. That reason for being that we can discover and cultivate in the subtle beauty of our everyday actions, through small minimalist rituals that infuse meaning and joy into our existence. I remember my grandmother Akiko, a woman of simple life, but immense inner wealth. She never spoke of great ambitions or transcendental purposes that would change the world. However, every morning, upon waking, she performed a series of small rituals with a presence and devotion that moved me deeply. The way she prepared tea, grinding the leaves with a small stone grinder, heating the water to the exact temperature, pouring it into her favorite bowl with slow, precise movements. The way she tended her tiny bonsai garden, pruning a twig here, watering delicately there, as if each little tree were a universe unto itself. Even the way she swept the tatami floor with a straw broom, each movement fluid and conscious. In these seemingly mundane actions, I sensed a deep connection, a serene joy, a sense of purpose that did not need grand words to manifest itself. She found her Ikigai not in some distant future, but in the very texture of her present. Many of us in our modern culture feel pressured to find our greater purpose in life, that overwhelming passion or transcendent mission that defines us and fills us completely. We look outside ourselves to great achievements, successful careers, external recognition, and often feel frustrated, anxious, or even lost if we fail to identify that great Ikigai. We compare ourselves to others and feel inadequate if our lives seem too ordinary. But what if the true purpose, that source of joy and meaning we all crave, wasn't found on mountaintops, but in the quiet valleys of our everyday lives? What if Ikigai wasn't something to be found outside, but something we can cultivate within through mindfulness, intention, and appreciation of the small, big moments? Japanese minimalism, with its emphasis on simplicity, awareness, and the search for beauty in the essential, offers us a wonderful path to discovering this silent Ikigai. Today, I want to share with you some reflections and practices inspired by this philosophy, to learn how to infuse our days with small, meaningful rituals that connect us to our essence and reveal the purpose that already resides within us. One of the first keys to discovering our silent Ikigai lies in transforming everyday tasks into conscious rituals, infusing them with presence and gratitude. We often go about our daily activities, making breakfast, getting dressed, cleaning the house, going to work, on autopilot, with our minds in 1,000 places at once, considering them mere obligations or interruptions on the way to something more important. However, each of these actions, however humble they may seem, can become an opportunity for mindfulness, for connecting with ourselves and the present moment, and for finding beauty and meaning that we previously overlooked. In Japan, the tea ceremony, chado, or way of tea, is a sublime example of how a seemingly simple activity like preparing and drinking tea can be elevated to the status of art and spiritual practice through meticulous attention to every detail, absolute presence, and the intention of harmony and respect. I think of Laura, a young mother and professional in Mexico City who felt constantly overwhelmed by her endless list of household and work tasks. She lived in a state of chronic stress, feeling that her days were a race against the clock and that she didn't enjoy anything. Naomi, I feel like my life is a succession of obligations, and I've lost the joy along the way, she confessed with a sigh of exhaustion. I suggested that instead of trying to do more things or do them faster, she choose 1 or 2 daily tasks that she found particularly tedious and try to transform them into small rituals. For example, making coffee in the morning. Instead of rushing through it while checking her phone, I suggested she take her time, paying attention to the aroma of the beans, the sound of the hot water, the color of the liquid as it poured into the cup. She should sit down to drink it in silence, savoring each sip before diving into the hustle and bustle of the day. At first, he thought it was a waste of time. But gradually, he discovered that those few minutes of presence and conscious enjoyment at the start of his day had a surprisingly positive effect on his mood and energy. "It's as if that little ritual anchors me, gives me a moment of peace before the storm," he told me. And I've started applying that same intention to other small things like folding laundry or even washing dishes. I no longer see them as chores, but as opportunities to be present. I invite you to choose a small daily task and turn it into your personal ritual. Do it mindfully, with gratitude for the ability to do it, and notice how your experience changes. This practice of infusing ritual and presence into the everyday naturally leads us to cultivate a deep appreciation for small sensory pleasures, finding joy in the subtle beauty we often overlook. Our silent Ikigai does not always manifest itself in great ecstasy or transcendental revelations, but often in the delicate fragrance of a flower, the warmth of the sun on our skin, the taste of ripe fruit, the melody of a song that moves us, or the soft texture of a fabric. Japanese minimalism, with its Wabi-Sabi aesthetic that finds beauty in the imperfect and simple, teaches us to sharpen our senses and find deep satisfaction in these subtle sensory experiences that life constantly offers us, if only we are willing to perceive them. I met Martin, an accountant from Buenos Aires, a methodical and hard-working man who felt that his life had become gray and monotonous. His days were spent between numbers and spreadsheets, and he had lost the ability to marvel or enjoy the little things. "I feel like I'm living in black and white, Naomi," he told me with palpable melancholy. I suggested that he start a journal of small sensory pleasures. Every day he would identify and write down at least 3 things that had delighted one of his senses. The smell of freshly baked bread as he passed a bakery, the feeling of the cool wind on his face as he left the office, the intense color of graffiti on a wall, the taste of his favorite tea. At first, she had a hard time finding those things, but as she trained her attention, she began to discover a world of small wonders that had previously gone unnoticed. "It's as if my senses have been awakened," she told me after a few weeks. "Now I find beauty and joy in unexpected places. My life still has its challenges, but it no longer feels gray. I have rediscovered colors." Take a moment each day to consciously connect with your senses. What can you see, hear, smell, taste, or touch in this very moment that brings you a little spark of pleasure or gratitude? Those moments are little threads of gold that weave your silent Ikigai. Another fundamental path to our silent Ikigai is dedication to a practice or skill that absorbs us completely, allowing us to experience the state of flow and the satisfaction of personal growth, however modest the activity may be. Ikigai is not always related to our paid work. It is often found in those activities we do for pure pleasure, for the simple joy of doing them, those in which time seems to disappear and we feel completely immersed and alive. It can be gardening, cooking, painting, writing, playing a musical instrument, practicing a sport, or even the art of repairing objects. In Japan, there is a deep respect for craftsmanship, shokunin, that lifelong dedication to perfecting a trade, finding a deep sense of purpose in the pursuit of excellence, even in the most humble tasks. I think of Elena, a lawyer in Madrid who was very successful in her profession, but felt increasingly disconnected from herself and any source of genuine joy. Her work was demanding and stressful, and she had given up all her hobbies. She remembered that as a child she loved to draw, but she hadn't picked up a pencil in years. I encouraged her to buy a small sketchbook and some colored pencils and simply start drawing again, without expectations, without judgment, just for the pleasure of doing it. At first she felt clumsy and self-critical. But little by little, as she allowed herself to play and experiment, she began to rediscover that childlike joy, that total absorption in the act of creating. "It's my sacred time, Naomi," she told me. "When I draw, I forget about everything else. I don't do it to be a great artist or to exhibit my work. I do it for myself because it makes me feel alive, connected. I found a little source of Ikigai in my colored pencils." Is there an activity you used to love doing but have given up? A skill you've always wanted to learn? Set aside a little time each week, even if it's just a few minutes. The result doesn't matter. What matters is the process, the connection with yourself, and the joy it brings you. Silent Ikigai also draws deeply on our connections with others through small acts of kindness, service, and contribution that make us feel part of something bigger than ourselves. While Ikigai has a very personal component related to our passions and talents, it is also fully realized when we put it at the service of others, when we feel that our existence has a positive impact, however small, on the lives of other people or our community. In Japanese philosophy, the concept of omoyari, which can be translated as consideration or empathy towards others, is fundamental. It is not about grand heroic acts, but rather those small everyday acts of kindness that strengthen human bonds and weave a network of mutual support and care. Ricardo, a retired teacher from Lima, Peru, felt a little lost and lacking in purpose after leaving his lifelong job. Although he enjoyed his free time, he missed the feeling of being useful and contributing. He began volunteering at his neighborhood library, helping children with their homework and reading stories to them. It was only a few hours a week, but the effect on his mood and sense of purpose was enormous. Seeing the little kids' faces light up when I read them a story, or when I help them understand something they're struggling with, fills me with a joy I haven't felt in a long time, Naomi, he shared with me. I've discovered that my Ikigai now lies in sharing my time and experience with them. It's a small thing, but I feel like it makes a difference. Look for opportunities in your daily life to perform small acts of kindness. A smile to a stranger, a word of encouragement to a colleague, offering your help to a neighbor, listening attentively to a friend in need. These seemingly insignificant gestures are seeds of Ikigai that can blossom into a deep sense of connection and purpose. Finally, to discover and cultivate our silent Ikigai, it is essential to create spaces of stillness and reflection in our lives, moments to disconnect from external noise and connect with our inner voice. Amidst the hustle and bustle of modern life, we often lose touch with ourselves, with our true desires, with what really moves us and gives us energy. Minimalism, by reducing physical and mental clutter, helps us create the inner space necessary for introspection. Practices such as meditation, zazen, Zen sitting meditation, or simply spending time in nature in silence can be powerful tools for quieting the mind and listening to the whispers of our Ikigai. My grandmother Akiko, despite her active life, always found moments to sit quietly in her garden, simply observing, breathing, being. These were her moments of tuning in to her own essence. Sophia, a young entrepreneur from Santiago, Chile, was full of ideas and projects, but she felt scattered and often anxious, not quite sure where to focus her energy. Her mind was a constant whirlwind. She began practicing meditation for just 10 minutes each morning, following a simple guide to paying attention to her breath. At first, she found it difficult to calm her thoughts, but with consistent practice, she began to experience moments of deep calm and inner clarity. "It's as if in that silence I can hear a wiser voice within me, Naomi," she told me. "A voice that guides me toward what really matters, toward what gives me true energy and joy. I'm beginning to discern my own Ikigai, not as an abstract idea, but as a feeling, a direction. I encourage you to find your own way to cultivate stillness. It may be through meditation, a solitary walk in a park, writing in a journal, or simply sitting in silence with a cup of tea. In that space of not doing, we often find the deepest answers." My dear friends, silent Ikigai is not an exotic destination to arrive at, but a path to be traveled day by day, a garden to be cultivated with love and attention in the soil of our own daily existence. We don't need grand gestures or radical transformations to find it. It resides in the intention we put into our simplest actions, in the appreciation of the fleeting beauty that surrounds us, in the dedication to what absorbs us and makes us feel alive, in the kindness we offer to others, and in the stillness that allows us to hear the wisdom of our own hearts. By embracing minimalism, not only as a way to organize our spaces, but as a philosophy for living with greater awareness and purpose, we create fertile ground for our silent Ikigai to flourish. We discover that true fulfillment is not found in the accumulation of things or experiences, but in the depth of our connection to each moment, to ourselves, and to the world. And in that connection we find an inexhaustible source of joy, serenity, and a sense of purpose that accompanies us every step of the way. As a beautiful Japanese proverb that my grandmother Akiko taught me and that I always carry with me says, Ichigo Ichie. It roughly translates to one moment, one encounter, reminding us that every moment is unique and unrepeatable, and that in the full appreciation of that present, with all its little rituals and silent revelations, we can find the very essence of our Ikigai. I sincerely hope that these reflections on silent Ikigai have inspired you to seek and cultivate your own purpose in the beauty of everyday life. If these ideas have sparked something within you, I invite you with great joy to join our community here at Encanto Minimalista. Subscribe to the channel to continue exploring together these paths of wisdom that guide us toward a simpler, fuller, and more meaningful life. And if this message has brought you a moment of clarity, a new perspective, or a surge of hope, please give us a like. Your support helps us immensely to bring these seeds of purpose and well-being to more souls who may be on their own journey. Now, as always, I would love to read your thoughts and discoveries. Comment below what small daily ritual brings you a sense of silent Ikigai, or what new practice you are willing to incorporate into your life to connect more deeply with your purpose. Write my Ikigai in simplicity if you feel inspired to embrace this path of finding joy and meaning in the beauty of each day. Thank you so much for your presence, your attention, and your courageous pursuit of a purposeful life. May you find your Ikigai in every sunrise, in every gesture of love, in every moment of serene presence. Matane.